how's it going out there? Michelle here from Gardening with the Landscape Connection. We finally made it outside. It's 35 degrees today, which isn't that warm, but at least the snow has melted off and we can start working on some landscape designs outside. So what I want to do today is go over 7 guidelines that I put together that would help you be able to create a garden design for yourself. We're also going to actually do a design so that you can see how I put one together that I'm going to do right here in front of my big red shed. This is actually on the east side. So I'm really excited about putting this together, showing you my 7 steps, and hopefully this will be totally awesome for you. Is a totally kick butt time to plan a new garden bed because you can actually think about what it is that you want, do some research, do some homework, look at pictures, watch videos, and put something together that you'll really like. Now, I'm going to use a software program to show you what I did today, but you can do this on a piece of paper. You can get out with some paint and just paint circles in your lawn to kind of represent the different things that you're doing. I've also done it on dry erase board with colored pencils or colored markers, all kinds of ways that you can do this, but I love the planning part because you can do it so many different ways. What's really cool though is, even though I showed you the picture of the side of my shed here, you could give this exact same picture to 4 different designers, and 4 different designers or 4 different people are going to come up with something totally different. And that's what you got to love about landscaping. So remember, no matter what you try, you can always change it and you can always add to it. I did a video, I don't know, maybe it was like back in December. It was on the beginning principles of landscape design, things for you to start thinking about. I'll link that video below if you want to go check it out. But the first thing I want to talk about, and this is probably it's not the fun part, but it's the part that's the most important. We certainly aren't doing it today, but it's one of the things that I still want you to think about and know that you really need to do. A long time ago, I heard someone say, I would rather put a 50-cent plant in a $5 hole than a $5 plant in a 50-cent hole. So number 1 on my list is prepping your bed. You need to know what kind of soil you have, and you need to know what you need to do to amend it. That's a video that we'll cover later as we get closer to the season, because I do have 100% clay soil right here in this bed. And as we do this bed, I'm going to take you through start to finish. Today's the planning part, but when we actually go to prep it, I'll take you through and show you all the steps that I do to get the bed ready. So that's what I have to do first. Because this is clay and because of some of the things that I want to plant in it, I have to amend my soil. That is number 1. Having great soil to start with is the building block of everything you're going to do. You can have the best design in the whole entire world, but if your dirt is garbage, you just wasted a whole bunch of money and time because it probably won't do what you want it to do. So prepping your soil is number 1. Okay, you can see right here, last fall I planted this Vanderwolf pine. One, it was looking really super stressed in the pot, and I knew I needed to get it in the ground, so I knew that it was going to be in this bed on this end, so I got it in the ground, even though I didn't do anything but get it in the ground. But one of the things you want to do when you're getting ready to think about doing a landscape design is remember how big things are gonna get, not how big they are right this minute, because they're all gonna grow. So whenever I'm doing a design, one of the things I like to do is, one, I do like to go out to the area where I'm actually working, and I will draw circles with my little paint. And you don't have to have this little sticky thing. You can just buy a can of inverted spray paint, and you can get it at any box store. It comes in all kinds of colors. If you want pink, you can get pink. They have pink, white, red, yellow, all kinds of colors. Now, what I'm going to do is I will draw the circles of how big the plant will be when it's all said and done, so that I know how much room to give it to grow. So this Vanderwolf pine, 10 to 15 feet wide. Let's say best case scenario, this guy gets 15 feet. That means on either side of it, I have to have 7.5 feet for it to grow. So I'm going to draw a circle 7.5 feet out from the center of my pine here. And if you don't have a ruler or a tape measure, just walk it off with your feet and just figure your 1 foot step is about a foot, because that's what I'm going to do right now. 1, 2, 3. I put this guy in. I figured he was going to grow right up to the edge of the shed, and that was what I wanted. So I made sure that I pulled him out 7.5 feet away from the edge of my structure. Now, if you want it even further away than that, make sure you space it, that gap that you want first before you draw your circle. This is a great way to make sure that you put things in places and give them enough room to grow. If you don't do that, you're going to have all kinds of problems. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not even next year, but you will have problems down the road. So remember, different things grow at different rates. Trees are going to grow a lot slower than bushes and then your perennials. If you're going to fill in with annuals while you're waiting for things to grow up, great. Go ahead and fill those in. Remember, perennials, if you're growing them from probably 1 year plants, they're going to take 1 year to sleep. The second year, they'll creep. And the third year, they'll leap. Trees can take up to 10 to 20 years before they're full size, and some can take even longer. Shrubs, you can figure 3 to 7 years for them to get full size. There are a few that are a little faster growing, but at least 3 before they're full size. So you have to take that into consideration when you're putting your landscaping together, because you're not buying giant things, you're buying littler things. And so you want to make sure that visually it still looks good while you're waiting for everything to grow up. And that's where annuals can really play a part in making it look fuller the first couple years. So remember, number 2 is know how big they're going to get and make sure you space accordingly. Number 3 is you want to make sure you have all seasons of interest depending on where you live. Now here I want 4 seasons, and I would think that even if you don't have a winter, you still want things that are blooming during each, I guess, quarter of the year. So I would figure what blooms in the first 3 months of the year, and then the next 3, and then the next 3, and then break it down into quads like that so you can figure it out. For me, I still want winter interest, so I want evergreens, I want some perennials that I can leave up that have good winter interest, and maybe I want the flowers off of like this, where's it at? Right there. This limelight hydrangea here that's going to give me the flower panicles. So think of a 20% rule. 20% spring, 20% summer, 20% fall, 20% winter. If you give yourself a good blend like that as you're figuring out what you want to put in your garden bed, you'll have better balance as you put it together. Number 4 is staggering your blooms and making sure you have a color palette that you really like. I always try to get the 4 colors in: red, blue, green, and yellow in my palette someplace. For my reds in this design, which you'll see in a little bit, I'm using the barn itself, or the shed, it's not really a barn, but the shed to be my red, and then everything else in here will pick up the other colors. I also want to make sure that I stagger the blooms in and out. No perennials, or very few anyways, bloom from start to finish for the whole season. So I want things that bloom, and then something else will bloom behind it, and then something behind that, and then something behind that. That way, I've always got something going on. I also want to make sure that I spread those blooms out through the bed so they're not all centered in one spot. That way, the bed always looks good. For me, this bed itself here it's 27 feet long, and I'm going to make it 13 to 14 feet wide. That's a pretty deep bed. And even where I swung it in, where you saw me bring the paint back in the other way on the curve, that's still 9 feet deep. So when I do this, I want to make sure that I don't have so much variety in my bed that it's just like, oh my God, that's just a hot mess. That's what my cottage garden is for, to have that eclectic look of a lot of different things growing together. I want this one to be a little neater. And usually when you're doing things in the front of your house, you do kind of want a little bit neater, more formal look. Maybe not formal, but maybe more uniform. So for me, I think a good design principle is quantity over variety. I would rather have more of one thing that's going to make a really strong impact than a whole bunch of different things all over the place that I don't know that they might or might not look good together. And when I do that, I create a whole bunch of maintenance for myself. And my goal this year is to try to put beds in that have purpose and lower maintenance. And so when I do the bed design, which you'll see in just a little bit, you'll see that I've made it super easy on myself. All right, keep it odd. Yeah, I'm odd. People say I am, and I'm okay with that. But what I mean by that is keep your numbers odd. It's a lot more interesting. Start with 3s or 5s or 7s or 9s. Anything under 15 should be done in odd numbers. I don't know what it is about your eye looking at that, but it always looks more pleasing. So odd numbers, unless it's a specimen plant or an anchor. What do I mean by a specimen plant? We'll talk about that in the next step. Number 7, create a focal point or anchors in your bed so that you've got places for your eyes to rest and you've got the structure and the bones of what the bed's going to be. If the whole thing is just perennials, that's great if that's what you're going for. But we're going for a mixed bed here that's going to have beauty, it's going to have cohesion, and it's going to be low maintenance. We definitely need that. So for me, that's number 7. Now, a bed, depending on how big it is, can have more than one focal point and more than one anchor. Just know that. And when I said it could be a specimen plant, what do I mean by that? It means that I'm going to pick one plant or one item that's going to be like the focus of what I'm going to create some things around, and that's either my specimen plant, which is one of a really cool something, or my focal point, which could be a statue or a bird bath or something like that. So let's take these principles and apply them to actually putting a landscape design in. So I did a design for you guys, and I thought I would just show you my thought process of how I did it. I am probably going to actually use this design to put in, and as we do it and we get all the stuff for it, I will take you guys through step by step to show you how it goes and how I'm putting it all in. Now, just remember, things can change. I mean, you can change your mind. You don't have to be locked into something, well, until you buy it. Once you buy it, then you have to figure out what to do with it. But I always like to have a plan because, one, it can be expensive to not know what you want to put in. And two, after I put all that love and work in, I want it to look good. And I want my hard work and planning to pay off in the end so that I have something beautiful in my garden. What I'm going to do first is I place all the big stuff first. So I have my Vanderwolf Pinant that's super tiny now, but he's going to grow and get bigger. So I have to plan for that in the future. Now, what I want to plant on the other side are these two beautiful junipers. Now, these are blue arrow junipers, and I like them because they only get about 2 feet wide. They're pretty skinny. They got a really nice blue foliage on them. And because this is kind of the other side of another bed, these are going to look good on both sides. Junipers are also super easy to grow, and they don't take like a lot of water once you get them established. They're pretty drought tolerant, and that's why I like them. Now, if you don't like junipers, or maybe you want a green juniper, there's a lot of different junipers out there to choose from. And if you don't like junipers, well, pick an arborvitae. There's North Poles, there's emerald green, so those are two nice cultivars that you could put in as well. What I find with arborvitaes, though, and I'm trying to keep things low maintenance, is they aren't drought tolerant. So if I have a dry spell that comes through and they're not getting rain, I have to go out there and supplement water them, and I don't want to do that. So that's why I'm choosing junipers. Now, I'm probably going to do the blue arrow junipers because they do only get 12 to 15 feet tall, maybe 2 feet wide. So I want that tall, skinny look. So there's other ones that you can get too. Just know that these are the two that I'm probably going to buy if I can find them. Now, if I can't find them, I'll pick something else. And you've got to be able to be flexible in your design as well. They're going to get 20 to 30 feet tall. So they're not super ginormous, and they're going to get anywhere from 10 to 15 feet wide. And that's what we call a moderate size, you know, evergreen. And they got these really nice long blue-green needles, and they have a nice shape, the soft, pretty look. And I just really like this pine. I like that it's got the blue-green together in it, and so that helps tie the blue of my other junipers on the other end. And there's my blue element. So I put this one in already, and I'm going to add the two junipers on the other end, and this is what I'm starting with. So when I look at a blend of how I'm going to put a bed together, I try to keep anywhere from 1/3 to half of the design. I want it to be evergreens, especially if I'm going for like a mixed border like we're doing here. Then I'm going to take 25% and I'm going to make that my deciduous flowering bushes. So these are bushes that get flowers on them, and then they lose their leaves in the winter and they go through a rest period. And then the last 25% is going to be a mix of perennials and or annuals, depending on what it is that I want. Next, I'm going to add boxwoods in because I really like boxwoods. I'm going to use a winter gem because they get 3 by 3, so they're a great size. They grow in zone 3 through 7, and they're pretty slow growers. Now, I'm going to have to prune this if I want to keep them in little balls, but I probably won't have to prune them for about 3 years. Once I start, I will have to continue pruning them. Now, if I don't want to prune, then I could go with like a midget arborvitae. It's a globe arborvitae, and they don't have to be pruned, and they grow in these nice little balls, and they have this nice soft foliage. Now, again, an arborvitae isn't as drought tolerant, so if it does get dry, I will have to water these, so I'm trying to avoid that. So I'm trading watering for pruning. I think I'm going to take the pruning because I have to prune boxwoods anyway on my property, so it's just one job in one day. But if you're introducing a chore, maybe you want to go with arborvitaes. The midgets grow in zone 3 through 7. Because I'm planting along the side of this nice shed here, I have a window. All of my storms come from the other side of this shed. The next thing I'm going to add are hydrangeas. The hydrangeas are going to be my flowering deciduous shrub, and in this picture you can see I have 3, but later I added a 4th one in because I felt like I needed that. Now, I don't want to completely cover all the red of my barn, so I'm leaving the center section open because I do have a focal piece that's going to go in the center of the design. I'm using white because white is such a great palette to use to put other colors against, and I think it kind of breaks that red up a little bit, and so I want to be able to layer my other things down. Now, I'm going to use the Incrediballs. These are from Proven Winners, and I'm going to use the white and I want white because they get big, they grow in part shade. They only need 4 to 6 hours of sun, and up against this shed with the sun rising, by the time the sun gets to noon, these will be in the shade, and so it's going to get the perfect amount of sun where they won't scorch. Now, if you're going to grow these kinds of hydrangeas, they will grow in full sun, but you might have to give them supplemental water, and if you're in the south where it's really hot, you probably will have to protect them from hot afternoon sun. These get anywhere from 4 to 5 feet high to 4 to 5 feet wide. And if I want to leave them up all winter with their little balls on them, I can, or I can cut them all the way to the ground because they do bloom on new wood. So I love that we're putting these in here because it kind of gives me that bloom. Once it starts blooming, it blooms all the way until frost and looks good. So there you go. I've taken care of my anchors in the bed, and I've created at least 3 seasons of interest right now. Okay. As you can see in this picture, I've added 2 more things. I have added a fractured boulder because I love fractured boulders, and I have this one that I've been looking for a place to put it, and I've been holding on to it for a little bit trying to figure out where to put it, and I'm going to put it in this bed, so I can't wait to put that in. Then in front of that, I'm going to anchor another evergreen, and it's going to be a slow mound mughal pine. I love these because they don't have to be pruned, and they're super tiny, and they're really super pretty. Look at this picture. Isn't that awesome? They get these little bitty needles on them. They get little candles on them in the spring. They are a super dark green with this really short needle, and I just love this shrub. It is so beautiful. I use it all the time in a lot of different circumstances. All right, you see that tall little skinny tree I tucked back there? That is actually probably behind the bed, but that is a slender silhouette sweet gum. I have been wanting one of these for so long. They look weird just all by themselves because they're this really tall, skinny tree, but I think this is the best place to put it while I'm waiting for my Vanderwolf pine to grow. And once the Vanderwolf pine grows up and I can't see the whole tree but just the top of it, I'll still be able to see it from the other side of the bed because I am going to do something on the back side because we've already started planting some evergreens back there. So I love this because it's super, super skinny. Now it does get these like sticky gumball things that fall off of it, but what's nice is they kind of like fall right underneath the tree, so they're really super easy to clean up, so I'm not really worried about that. But the fall color, check out that fall color. That is fabulous. So it's a tall, skinny little tree, but man, if I wanted one, and I think this is the perfect place for me to fit it in. Okay, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to come inside. I was getting cold. All right, as you can see in this picture, I added all of the perennials. Now here I want to talk about number 3, 4, and 5, which are basically having the 20-20-20 rule. 20% of this is going to be perennials. And then I also have different staggered bloom times, and I also have quantity versus variety, only using 5 kinds. And I have big drifts of flowers because if you think about, I said when we measured the actual shed itself, it was 27 feet. But if you look at the design, it actually extends about 7 feet on either side of the 27 feet. So what's that? 37, 41, it's like 40 feet long. So that's a long expanse of bed to fill. And so as you can see, I also put my focal piece in, which is this statue, and I don't know if that's what's going to be the focal piece. Right now I have a tree in there. It's a little Tina crab, which I'm not loving, so I'm probably going to move it. I think I like the statue. I'm kind of pondering what that's going to be, and that's what's nice about designing in the winter is you can take your time to do that. Now let's talk about the perennials I put in this bed. All right, this first one is a yarrow. It's the Firefly Peach Sky. I talked about this the other day in a video when I was talking about different perennials that you could pair up. I am planting this one this year. I love this yarrow. I can't wait to put it in. And I'm going to pair it up with the Nepeta, which is the light purple. And so this one is growing 3 feet high by about 2 feet, 8 inches wide. So it's a fairly decent sized yarrow. It's got a really nice upright habit from what I read. I have not grown this one yet, so I'm really excited to do it. It is growing in zone 3 through 8 full sun, deer resistant. Yes. See, don't you love it that I tie all the videos together? All right, so here is the next layer down. I did 3 layers down. So the next one is the Nepeta Cat's Meow. This is from Proven Winners as well. It's growing 20 inches high by about 3 feet wide, has that beautiful lavender flower on it, and it grows in zone 3 through 8. My next layer down is another white, so it ties the white from the back to the white in the front. This is the Salvia Snow Hill. It's got a super long bloom time, and it's a little bit shorter than the Napata. So it's only going to grow 15 to 18 inches high. It has a really nice mounding habit, gets these beautiful white flowers on it. Now what's really cool, and I know some people, you're saying, you want low maintenance, but for me, this isn't high maintenance to go do this. For some people it would be, but for me it's not. When my flowers are done on both my salvia and my catmint, I will go back there and I will cut them both back. They will both reflush blooms again about 8 weeks later. So I'll have a second flush of blooms on both of those with nice fresh foliage that will take me through to the end of the season. That's why they're kind of together like that, so that they will have that beautiful growing pattern together. All right, over on the right side, I'm going to plant Agastache, and I'm going to plant the Peach Nectarine, or the Queen Nectarine by Proven Winners, which has more of like a peachy hue to it, but it's a little bit darker than the Yarrow. So I think the two of them together are going to look really super nice. They are split a little bit by the statue in the middle, so that will be really cool. This Agastache grows in zone 5 through 9, and it gets about 3 by 3. It's a nice solid mass, and so I really like that about it. The one that I did grow last year I really liked, so I'm excited to put more of this in the garden. Also, the Agastache, deer resistant. I know, I'm on a roll here. Right below that Agastache, that's where I'm going to plant the Echinacea Powwow Wildberry. This was one of the combinations that I said I was going to try this year, and the other video that I did about perennial pairings with Salvia and the Echinacea. And so this was one of the ones I talked about. I can't wait to put this together. I think this is going to look so cool. The Powwow Wildberry is a little bit shorter. It's only 18 to 24 inches, so it's going to be that next layer down, and then you're going to have that purple. And what's really cool about Echinacea is it's not so foliage is down lower, and then the flowers come up above it. So you're going to have these flowers and then that mound of that Agastache behind it. I think it's going to look really fabulous, so I can't wait to put this in, and we're going to put it behind that fractured boulder, so you'll have a nice focal that'll draw your eye over there too. Now is also a great time to look at your design and go, even though I'm not going to plant this yet, I don't have any really spring bloomers in here. Now, I do have Napata that's going to come up, you know, probably the middle of May, but I really need some spring. But now is a good time to look at it and go, where can I strategically place some daffodils and some alliums in here? And I want to plant the spring bulb alliums like the gladiators or the ambassadors to come up through the bed. That way, as the other items are growing in, it'll hide the foliage from the daffodils and the alliums as they die back. So that is the 2 spring bulbs that I will be putting in here, and I won't put them in until fall, but then I'll have my 4th season of blooms. So again, those guidelines are, number 1, make sure that you've got everything you need to prep your bed to have a great start, because that's what's going to make it long-term last for a super duper long time and make your life easier later. If you skip that step, you've just made more work for yourself, and you probably cost yourself more money. So don't skip the prep the bed part, and make sure you find me and watch that video when I put it out when we get ready to prep this bed, which will probably be the beginning of April. So watch for that. The other thing is make sure you leave enough room in your garden bed for the full size of the plants. Don't stuff them all on top of each other and not give them room to grow, unless you want to be digging them up later and doing this all over again 5 years from now. So make sure you give yourself enough room. 3, make sure you cover all 4 seasons and that you've got interest. Make sure you stagger those blooms in and out, and you've got all different things blooming at different times. Make sure it's quantity over variety. A lot of variety isn't always great. Sometimes you can do a really nice design with less items and just have more of them. And then keep those numbers odd, 3s, 5s, 7s, you know, make sure you use that odd number. It is visually more appealing to the eye. Oh. And then again, create a focal piece in there someplace, whether it's a statue, it's a bird bath, or it's a specimen plant. Create something that your eye is going to draw to with everything that's around it. That is the reason you're making the bed. There you go, you guys. I hope you're enjoying this video series. I know that I'm having a good time putting it together, and I'm hoping breaking it down well enough that you understand what it is that I'm doing and that it's helping you. I know for me, it's easy to put things together, but that's kind of why I started with the perennial pairings, and then how do I put those perennial pairings into a mixed border? There's lots of videos that you can go back and look at throughout the year that I did with different lists of different kinds of shrubs, different kinds of perennials, and things that you can check those out as well. Also, our next video will be about shade. So we'll start with the pairings and then we'll go on to create a design. And I know you're all looking forward to the shade one because I've had lots of questions and people asking for it. So stay tuned for that. That will be probably next week. And we are going to do the What Would Michelle Do series. I probably won't do that until March though. And it's basically going to be scenarios of what would I do if I had this situation in front of me. So please send in your suggestions of what it is or what problem it is that you'd like me to solve for you, and I will do my very best to do that. Remember, I live in zone 5. I'm not that familiar with like zone 9, 10 and things like that, but I can research and try to help you to the best of my ability. Okay, you guys, are you psyched? Are you motivated? Get out there and plant a garden. I'm Michelle. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.